Okay, so you want to win some more MMR? Okay. Right. Well, that's fine. What I've got planned for today is I'm going to teach you how to control your lane and lane in a safer way. So I'm basically going to teach you how to lane much more efficiently and to lane in such a way that you can't be ganked as easily. So here I'm going to be using actually going to be Sven, since he's your typical carry. So when you go into lane, first of all, as a carry, melee carry, almost always take Stout Shield and Quelling Blade, always. And then you want some regen, so either tangos, and then depending on your hero, that's when you want to vary it up most of the time. But we're just gonna take a couple of Iron Branches, and actually we're gonna give ourselves a courier, since normally you would have a support by the courier for you. Right, awesome. So I'm not gonna go to the rune or anything. I'm just gonna what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start creep blocking. Now on the safe lane, it's extremely hard to creep block before the tier 2 because the creeps are so fast in this area. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna head to the tier 2 and just block there, since you normally would have gone up to your rune, and then you probably walk down this way down to here and then met the creeps here. So we're gonna meet them here anyway. Now regen is really important as your carry when you're playing carry, simply because I mean, if your supports are good at what they do, then they should have already, basically gotten rid of the enemy off lane. Now I've completely messed up that block because I was way too close, so they were still fast. I should have blocked here really. Anyway, so the first thing we're going to talk about is draw an aggro. Now to draw aggro, what I need to do is I need to summon a no, I need to hero. Let's do a Nyx, for example. I believe this is how you do it. Awesome. Right, so you go stand over there, buddy. Now, if the lane is in this situation, for instance, or even if you've got, say, 3 melee creeps, which I'll show you in a sec. We'll bring you over here. So what you can do, if you've got, say you've got an axe or a legion or somebody who wants to sit in the creep wave, just right click on the enemy carry or the enemy hero and then just run back, and then you'll see that it'll split the creep wave a bit, which means you're going to actually be guaranteed some farm rather than just be trying to not be like if your creep wave is split in half, you're less likely to get as much farm, but it's safer. Now if your support's doing a good job, then you don't need to do that because the offlaner is going to be zoned out. But if you do this properly, then you can get your guaranteed 3 melee creeps, and then you will most likely miss out on the range creep. But what you can do is you can just go and kill that quickly, and then come back and get the rest of the creeps. So the next thing I want to talk about after you've done creep aggro is positioning of the lane. Now when you're on the safe lane, you want to stay as close to this side as you can, and on the up here you'll want to stay as close as this as you can, when you're playing dire. Reason is, if there's an incoming gank and you're stood here, first of all, anything like a hook, a stun, they can stun you from there and you still can't even see them. Whereas if you're stood over here, then you'll see the gank coming in much easier, and you've got these trees to juke. You can run along here, and they've got to go further in which you can see them, which will make it much safer for you. So that's the first tip. Now actually this is next thing is a little bit different, because it varies on what hero you play, but some heroes, it's holding the point. Holding a skill point is really important. Now what that means is when you get to a level like level 3, I could skill my Great Cleave, but if I do, I'll start pushing the lane, which would then make it unsafe for me. So what most higher tier players do is they hold the point until they're level 4, and then they put both points in, and then they start pushing and playing a little bit more aggressively. But you don't need to start playing aggressively, or well, it's not that you're playing aggressively, it's just that you don't want to be pushing too early, simply because you put yourself in an unfavourable position. But once you're level 4, you're more likely to be able to play safer. Right, we can send you back to base, buddy. We don't need you anymore. So on a hero like Sven, or any hero that has the option to push fast and then jungle, so say a Juggernaut or a Chaos Knight can do it as well. What you want to do is you want to push as fast as you can, and then come take one of these two camps. Okay, and I like to call this the push and farm, and you're gonna miss out most likely on one melee creep, but you'll have gotten 3 jungle creeps. Actually, because I don't have my boots, I'm gonna miss out on more probably. Now what this does is it means that you're not getting as much farm in lane, but you're also getting farm in the jungle, which is more efficient. Obviously, if you have your boots, you'll be able to get back in lane much faster. Which actually I'm going to get my boots now to demonstrate it to you. And also the important thing about this is to not do it too early. Reason is, if you do this too early, you're not going to be strong enough to kill the jungle camps without taking too much damage, and then you're going to be in a bit of a dangerous position. Also, if you're not very high level, you don't really want to be right next to the enemy tower, simply because if you're next to their tower, then you're putting yourself in danger. Because a gank when you're under the enemy tower at level 4 or 5, you're going to get destroyed. So push in, and then once we've pushed, we go get the camp. Now, if you're playing a hero like Slark, for instance, then an Iron Talon could be a good pickup, because, well, first of all, Slark can't clear the camps or the laners easily, and he'd have to use Dark Pact to clear it, which isn't it's a great ability, but because your resource to use it is your own health, you don't really want to use it for farming that much unless you have your level 6. Because once you got your level 6, your health, it really doesn't matter, provided you can hide. So let's go over all of those points again. We've got lane positioning. If you're pushing the lane, it's much more favourable to position yourself over here. Cut these trees down, because somebody TP's in here, they can hide themselves from you. And when you are in an area around here, don't sit on this side of the lane, okay? Because this spot right here is a perfect place to sit when you're waiting to gank the Radiant safe lane, and same as over here. You got little spots like this and over here where people like to sit to get ready to gank the Radiant safe lane, and you're just making it easier for them by standing on this side of the lane. So if you make sure you cross over and stand on the other side of the lane, you'll be much safer, and you'll be able to farm and most likely get out of most of the situations when people are coming to gank you. Oh god, I can't see us. So in creep blocking, the reason creep blocking is important is because your first creep wave's positioning will determine the positioning for the rest of the laning phase, unless your supports pull, or unless you draw aggro sufficiently enough that you can bring the creep wave back. But do remember that the enemy can draw creep aggro also, and they can just counteract your aggro by drawing your creeps towards them, which then means that their creeps are gonna follow your creeps, if that makes sense. And then the push strategy. Now, it's important you don't start doing the push strategy too early, because if you do, you're gonna put yourself in danger, and it's gonna be really easy to gank you. Now, if you're playing a hero like Sven and you're level 4, level 5, and you're playing a tri-lane, and your supports are pulling, then what you can do is just tank the creep wave here and just kill them really quick. Obviously, be careful of ganks incoming, because if you're tanking the creep wave, the enemy team's gonna have to do less damage to you. All they need to do is lock you down. But once you've tanked the creep wave here, can I get them in time? Yes, I did. Then you can go and farm the jungle. And with Sven, it's much easier to do because you can gain armor and you've got cleave. But you'll notice I always use my my armor just before I leave the creep wave. That's because the creeps are then going to move faster, so they're closer to the tower, which means the range creep is definitely in tower range. Which means that when I go back up there, the creep wave is most likely to be there. Also, if you're trying to push, then abilities like Warcry are really strong because the way you push is you make your creeps stronger than theirs. That's the best way to push. Gain momentum on your lane by either having a hero do more damage or having more creeps, which will in turn do more damage to the enemy creep wave. Now, something I haven't really talked about yet is momentum of the lane. Now, the way you determine the momentum of a lane is by how many range creeps are on each side. If one side has more range creeps, then that side is going to push harder, and you want to kill the creep. You want to kill the range creep, the extra range creep on that side, because when you're trying to keep your lane under control and you've got 2 range creeps, the opposite lane or the opposite creep wave is going to take much more damage, because if you look at the creep that does the most damage, it is by far the range creep. Now it only looks like 3 damage difference, but it is. The DPS that the range creeps do is much higher than any other creep. And also, obviously, the most important thing of all in laning and laning properly is get your last hits. It's not hard. You know, if you can't get last hits, you shouldn't be playing carry. Simple as that. Now, if it doesn't matter how good you are at fighting, if you can farm efficiently and not miss your last hits, then you're gonna win the game, because you're gonna be more farmed than any enemy hero, and literally anybody, a complete moron, can just run at the enemy and right click them. So remember, creep block to make sure your creep wave is closest as possible to your tower, but you don't want the enemy creeps to be under your tower, because that makes it harder to last hit. If the lane is in an unfavourable position, draw aggro from the enemy creep wave by A clicking, so tap A on your keyboard and then left click on the enemy, or right click on the enemy and then run back away from them. Position yourself safely so as you're not too close to a gankable position, and if you can, ask your supports towards in positions like here, because that gives you so much. And then finally, the push and farm. So push and then farm these 2 camps here. Obviously don't do that if your supports are trying to go for some pulling and stacking, and also if you're playing a hero like Sven, your supports most likely would have stacked this camp, so you might have to use your ult to farm that, but that's fine. Right, I hope this video was helpful for you. Just remember to play safe in your lane, because if you don't die in your laning phase, you're going to be more farmed, because you'll have spent more time in lane farming. The enemy team's going to be less farmed because they won't have gotten the bounty kill for you, and finally, less deaths just looks better, and your team can't blame you when you feed, because you won't have fed. So if you enjoyed the video, please let me know, and I really do hope it was helpful for you, and I'll see you next time.